guys, today I'm going to show you how to use the future tense in Spanish. So the future tense is when you use when you want to talk about what somebody will do in the future. So far you've learned how to talk about things in the past and in the present. Now we're going to learn how to talk about what somebody will do. For the future tense, it starts out a little differently than what you guys are usually used to. Usually you're used to people having to take a verb and take off the AR, ER, and IR, right? Like, for example, if we have the verb hablar, anytime we conjugate that verb, you're used to having to drop off the AR and then add your endings. But with the future tense, we don't do that. We leave the AR on the end of the verb. That's the biggest difference for the future. You're taking your endings and adding them right to the infinitive or the whole verb, like hablar, for example. And so it's really quite easy to do the future tense. Because of that, you don't have to drop any endings, and the endings are the same whether it's an AR, ER, or IR verb. All the endings are always a, as, a, amos, and an, with an accent everywhere except for in the nosotros. So let's see if I can show you how to do the verb hablar in all of its forms. Let's see. So, for example, the yo form of hablar, then I would leave hablar and then just add the accented e, hablaré. So that it all fits here. There we go. So the yo form of hablar is hablaré. And then for the to form, just want to cooperate, you would use hablar again, don't drop anything off, and then add the as, hablarás. For el, you would use hablar and then just add the a. For nosotros, still use hablar, no changing anything, and just add amos, no accent. And for ellos, it would be still hablar, but just add an an. So when you conjugate the verb hablar, you have you leave the hablar there, and then you just add all of those endings. Same for pretty much any other verb except some irregulars I'll show you here in a second. Let's go to the next one. All right, so let's see if you can try these verbs, bajar in the yo form, subir to, and so on. Even with ir and estar, which are frequently irregular verbs, in this case, they are not irregular, they are normal. Okay, I'm going to give you a minute to try. All right, so the yo form of bajar, I'm just going to keep bajar, and then I'm going to add the yo ending, so it'll be bajaré. For the to form of subir, I'm going to keep subir and add the to ending, so it would be subirás. This little thing. For ella, for mandar, you would have mandar, and then just add an a, mandará. For nosotros of ir, I'm just going to take ir, leave it alone, and then add the ending, so iremos. And for ellos, for estar, again, I just use estar, and I add the ending, so estarán. Okay, so that is how you would conjugate those basic irregular verbs with the future. Now let's take a look at the irregulars. So there are three different types of irregular verbs. There are verbs that when you conjugate them, you have to drop out the last vowel. So for example, poder, when you conjugate it in the future, you have to get rid of this e and add your endings to podr. And for querer, you drop out this e and you add your endings to quer. And same thing for these. The next set on the right here is verbs that instead of the final vowel, you put in a D. So for example, for the verb poner, instead of an E, you would put a D there. Or for salir, instead of an I at the end, you would replace it with a D. And these last two don't really have a pattern. So let's look at some examples here. So querer is a verb that is a drop the final vowel. So when I go to conjugate it in the future, I'm going to take out that E, and then I'm going to add my endings. So for the yo form, I would get querer. for the to form, it would be querrás, and so on. And then let's look at one that is a D. So if I was to use the verb tener, for example, in tener, it's one that you get a D instead of the final vowel. So I'm going to take out that E and replace it with a D. So the L form would be tendrá, for example, or the nosotros tendremos. And I replace that D or that final vowel with a D. And then the last kinds are those irregular ones. So for example, hacer, I would say hacer looks like a pirate, or it sounds like a pirate when you do it, because instead of saying haceré, you just say ar, aré, arás, ará. It's the pirate verb. So there are some of your irregulars, and those are the main irregulars for the future. All right, let's see if we can practice some of those. All right, so on your own, see if you can figure out how to do these 3 verbs with the irregulars. All right, so let's go over those. So for saber, it is a verb that drops the final vowels. So I would get rid of the E and have sabre, and then since I need a to ending, I need sabrás. Oops, sabrás. And then hacer, there's that pirate verb we talked about. So the yo, or for hacer, we start with ar, like a pirate, and the yo form is an E, so it'd be arre. And tener is one that we put a D in place of the final vowel, so we would start with the tendre, and then our ending for ea is a, tendrá. So that's how you do the irregulars. And let's try some from English to Spanish. Take a minute to see how you would do these. Pause the video if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and go over them. So I will dance. To dance is bailar. So I want the yo form. I'm going to use bailar, the whole verb, and then the yo ending is the a. Yo bailaré. He will win. The verb to win is ganar. So I want the L form. So L, and I'm going to use all of ganar. And the L ending is an A. So el ganará. We will live. All right, so nosotros. I'm not going to put the nosotros there because I'm not going to have room. But vivir is the verb. Leave it alone. And then add amos. Viviremos. Okay. They will eat. So ellos, and then I'm going to leave all of comer, and then add the they ending, comerán. Sorry about that. And then you will know a fact. So to know a fact is saber. I'm going to use the to form. You could do usted also. Remember, this one we have to drop the final vowel, so you should have had two sabrás. I will do. So to do is hacer. Well, this is not cooperating well. So hacer is the pirate verb. I need ar, and the yo ending is an e, arre. And she will have, to have is one that gets a D in place of a final vowel, and the ea ending is an a, tendrá, ea tendrá. So there they are. Let's see if I can move that over so you can see. Okay, and then there's one other way we can talk about the future. Another way that maybe is a little bit more simple to talk about the future is to say that someone is going to do something instead of saying they will do something. When you do that, you use a form of the verb ir, either voy, vas, va, vamos, or van, and then the word a, and then an infinitive, which means a verb you haven't conjugated. So for example, if I wanted to say I am going to run instead of I will run, then I would use the yo form of ir, which is voy, and then the a, and then I just leave correr. I don't do anything to the verb. If I wanted to say you're going to live, I would use the to form of ir, vas, then the a, and just leave vivir alone, vas a vivir. If I wanted to say they are going to go, I would need the they form of ir, so I'd use van, a, and just leave ir alone. Don't conjugate it. Let's have you try a couple of those. See if you can put these three sentences using the ir plus a plus infinitive to say what people are going to do. Then pause the video if you need to. I'm going to go over it. So we are going to read nosotros. So I need the nosotros form of ir, vamos, and then the a, and then the word to read is leer, and I don't do anything to it. Vamos a leer. And she is going to sleep. So ella, the ella form of ir is va, a, and to sleep is dormir. And he is going to watch TV. So for that I would need el, and then the el form of ir is va, a, and then to watch is mirar, and then I can say televisión. No, la televisión. All right, so that's how you say someone is going to do something. So we have two ways to do the future, either the future tense that we learned or this ir plus a plus infinitive.